How's it going, guys, and welcome to the showdown between the Tomb Kings led by SETTRA and the Lizard People, who are going to be led by Krokar. So let's jump right into this match, guys, and have some fun. So in the front line, I do have a somewhat tanky infantry corps. I mean by Tomb King standards. So when you play Tomb Kings, you do have access to several tiers of infantry. You have Skeleton Warriors, which are about 300, and obviously they're just going to get lawnmowered by Saurus Warriors. Then, of course, you have Nehekar Warriors, which can hold their own against like Skinks, but they will still get pounded by Saurus Warriors. So I wanted to go with the more high-tier infantry, the Tomb Guard, to really see if they could hold that front line. And they also do have Silver Shields. So if your opponent does have Chameleon Skinks over here on the flanks, like you can see, I think he does have 2 of them hidden down there. These guys are going to be able to mitigate some of that damage. However, they still only do have 50 armor, so they are going to take some, punishment from Saurus, but I really wanted them to, hold that front line to really allow my, Shopti Great Bows and my other troops in the back line to do the heavy lifting. But aside from that, their stats, 37, 46, and 42, which really isn't bad. I mean, their melee defense is much higher than Saurus Warriors. I think their melee attack is better as well with 37, and then their weapon strength, of course, is a little bit lower. So that's pretty much my entire front line. I do have the Kepler Guard in the middle, the Regiment of Renown, and very similar to the Sternsmen. I feel like they should be, I wouldn't say an auto-include, but I think they're a pretty worthy pick. They have really good stats, and of course they have regeneration, so they're going to be tough to pick off. So this is kind of the wild card right here. So SETTRA, when you put him on foot, has really good armor-piercing values and in a substantial anti-large bonus, if I'm not mistaken. I think it's like 20, yeah. So I thought he'd be a pretty good option. So he's going to get knocked around a little bit by Krokar, but as you guys know, when units do get knocked over, they don't seem to take the damage. It's more so when they're like braced for the impact or they take the full attack. So I figured he might get knocked around a little bit, but he has good stats, 60, 55, 470 with a really good anti-large bonus and heavy AP. So I figured he might be pretty good against like Krokar and Saurus Scar veterans and things like that. He does, of course, have the Lore of Nehekar, which is going to heal my front line and provide some utility to the battlefield. Usirian's Incantation of Vengeance is a slow. We also have Nero's Incantation of Protection for physical resist. And then last but not least, we have the Dejaf's Incantation of Cursed Blades to buff our damage. Back line of Ushapti Great Bows, excuse me. I think they're a very solid choice. Armor piercing, they can do really well against Saurus Warriors with 100 armor, so if they have to go into melee, they're really good, but excellent at picking off the big dinos. Definitely a must pick against the Lizardmen, in my opinion. And, honestly, if the Lizardmen decide to go really wide with a ton of Saurus Warriors, I still think they'll do pretty well and can hold their own in melee. In the back, a Necrosphinx, just to kind of assist. So SETTRA, of course, is going to be okay against Krokar, but I wanted to have a little bit more meat and potato. So Necrosphinx these guys are incredibly strong. I definitely think they're one of the MVPs on the Tomb Kings rosters. Better than Chagas, in my opinion, and they hold their own against Saurus Scar veterans. Definitely a very, very solid pick here. In the side, this is another wild card. I do have the Eyes of the Desert, so this is the Regiment of Renown of the Sepulchral Stalkers. So anti-large armor-piercing melee attacks, and I don't think they have anti-large on their missiles, but armor-piercing missile attacks with poison. I feel like they'd be pretty good utility against the dinos, like kiting, and if they have to, they can run with their halberds and fight, and also you can see they're getting some good fire right here on the Skink Chief. That's pretty much it for my army. For my opponent, 2 Chameleons, front line of Saurus Warrior and Temple Guard. So I do think Temple Guard are a great pick. I think he has some in the back. It looks like he does have 2 groups. And a bunch of Saurus Warriors. And then the very old school, I guess, the beginning of Total War Warhammer 2 is old school now. He has a Krokar and a Saurus Scar veteran just looking to fight those big monsters. But I hopefully don't have too many for him to fight. So without further ado, let's get this show on the road. So right here, you can see he is going to be flying around with his Skink Chief, taking a little bit of damage from my Ushapti Great Bows. Just going to poke him a little bit. Won't commit too much firepower to them. But aside from that, the Tomb Guard I'm going to be squaring up. And the Tomb Guard, I've been pretty, impressed with the past few games, how well they've really held up. In the side, you can see my opponent is going to be coming in with some of those Chameleon Skinks to kind of flank me. And that's something about the Tomb King infantry. They'll have like horrible charge bonuses. So you can see these guys have a charge bonus of 8, so not going to get much against these Saurus Warriors. I wonder who would win 1-to-1. I feel like the Saurus Warriors would definitely take that. But the Kepler Guard, on the other hand, if you guys take a look here, when they do engage, they're going to do some pretty good damage right out of the gate. So the Saurus Warriors, obviously a poor charge bonus, but when that damage kicks in, just look at these Saurus Warriors getting shredded. And I, of course, will have regeneration and healing through my other lores of magic. So on the far side, this is the Battle of Battles. You can see Krokar and his Saurus Scar veteran are going to be chasing down my Sepulchral Stalkers. So I do pull my Necrosphinx over and just look at him get in there on Krokar. He gets in there and starts fighting. Krokar is going to pop the Sacred Spawning of Zodal, and I just turn these guys around. I'm like, hey, I have reinforcements now. I can turn and fight, or I can just run away and shoot. Definitely some decent utility. I think that the Sepulchral Stalkers are going to really be one of those niche picks. I don't think they'll be something you'll see terribly often, but just look at the firepower. I mean, they're able to do some great damage to Krokar. The Necrosphinx doing good. You can also see that we do have SETTRA, the Imperishable, leading his legions down here, and of course going to be bringing some anti-large and armor piercing to the 95 armor here. So far so good. The Sepulchral Stalkers are going to be spitting up here on the Saurus Scar veteran. The Skink Chief is in Overwatch right here, and I'm just repositioning my Ushapti Great Bows. So of course I do seem to have the advantage in the back line, but of course what's always going to be scary is the front line. So I do use that debuff right there, the Usirian's Incantation of Vengeance, and the Tomb Guard are holding. I mean, 65 here, putting a dent in these 2 groups. Right here in the middle, the Kepler Guard are just really laying a beating on these Saurus Warriors, just going hog wild, having a good old time. But definitely impressed with this regiment over down. Although, in terms of like a pure cost analysis standpoint, I would say it's still relatively ineffective. The Saurus Warriors are like 200 gold cheaper or 300 gold cheaper than the Kepler Guard. So it's still going to be a bit of an advantage for my opponent, but ultimately they're going to hold the front line and really allow my back line to shine, and from there I can pull them forward and kind of clean up these guys, hopefully. So over here you can see that my Eye of the Desert, my Sepulchral Stalkers are going to be providing some overwatch right here, just shooting those armor-piercing missile attacks a little bit, taking their sweet time right here. But SETTRA getting knocked around a little bit by Krokkar's tail, but you know, poison and this Necrosphinx. I've just been buffing this thing the entire time with SETTRA, giving it the Djav's Incantation, the Narrows Incantation right there to give it physical resist, and it's just been tanking Krokkar and the Saurus Scar Veteran like absolute beasts. And SETTRA, of course, getting a great attack right there with that anti-large bonus. And I do have that Overwatch from these Ushabti Greatbows up here on the high ground, who are just kind of peppering into the Skink Chief and just like wasting Krokkar, just doing a ton of damage. So Cold Blood did actually get changed. If I'm not mistaken, it actually is like a longer duration effect, but less burst healing. So it's going to make him a little bit more vulnerable to getting picked off here. And you can see Krokkar is taken out by those Ushabti Greatbows on the high ground. So definitely some really good value coming from those guys so far. And you can see that the Saurus Scar Veteran is going to be getting pushed back by this Sphinx. And I can't speak enough about how powerful it is to have units that, you know, aren't breaking. You know, for example, if you had a Shaggoth or something and it was that close of a fight, it probably would have braked off. And even if this guy broke, he'd start crumbling a little bit, losing a little HP here and there, but nothing like terribly devastating. So right now, the front line of fight is, of course, going in the favor of my opponent. He does have the Temple Guard, and the Tomb Guard really held and did their job, and the Kepler Guard even won their respective engagement, which was cool, and of course they regenerate. So they're going to be healing HP if you guys take a look right here. But he does have a lot of troops coming down the hill here, so I'm just making sure to pick off all of his elites, and you can see the Ushabti Greatbows doing a very, very good job kind of poking those guys down. Over here on the hill, you can see the Saurus Warriors are able to clean up the last of my Tomb Guard, but I definitely think they paid their dues and really bought me the time I needed to deal with Krokkar and those other threats. So I am going to be sending the Sphinx in here. He's going to get some slow motion scythe attacks going on, and he has some really, really cool attack animations. So just cleaving those Temple Guard asunder. And you can see I'm going to be pulling him back in just a moment. Obviously, I don't want him fighting, fighting anti-large beasts. I do pop the Usirian's Incantation of Vengeance, and SETTRA's going to get in there, use the Revenge of Ptra, I think is what it's called. Nice little AoE knockback, does some damage. And of course, I have a ton of troops back here to provide overwatch. So Chosen of the Gods, the Ushabti Greatbows are all going to be firing in here, and you can see the poison attacks, which also have really good AP. Now that SETTRA's taking the brunt of the damage, I can charge in and do pretty well for myself there. Up here in the hill, the Saurus Warriors are going to be fighting the Kepler Guard and the remnants of the Tomb Guard, who are pushing forward up to 78 kills at this point, so definitely not disappointed with that. And this was also a very big aspect of the battle that went well for me. I just kind of chased and screened out these skinks with skeletons the entire game. I think I sent 2 groups after them. They killed one, but the other one was able to just keep them busy, pretty much indefinitely. So these Stalkers, I was able to send them into melee, and even though they are an anti-large troop, they still have really high AP values. Unfortunately, my glorious Sphinx finally does fall. He definitely paid his price, paid his dues this game, did pretty well for me. But SETTRA, I really like, I was kind of, perturbed by how expensive SETTRA was, and you can see these guys all coming in, just those arrows, it's just so awesome. But I was really kind of bummed out about how expensive SETTRA was, and right there you can see the Ushabti Selling coming in as well. Didn't really need it at this point, a little bit overkill, but it does push him to army losses. But I was kind of bummed, like I said before, about how expensive SETTRA was. But having SETTRA on the ground is a bit of a stationary lord against he's durable. He has anti-large, he has armor piercing, he can fight off threats. He does, of course, have the lore of Nehekara, so he can bring some physical buffs and damage buffs, and you can really cycle those very aggressively. And the more you spam those abilities, the more healing triggers you're getting on your front line through the lore of Nehekara ability. I forget what it's called off the top of my head. It's really cool though. In conjunction with the Realm of Soul. So I think that was really what led to my frontline holding, and I think you need the Tomb Guard. I think skeletons would have crumbled too quickly, even if I had massive groups of skeletons, and his Saurus Warriors and Temple Guard would have piled into my back line, and it would have been very micro-intensive and stressful. I think that front line bought me the time I needed for SETTRA and the boys to really clean up Krokkar and his crew back there. So very well played. My opponent is a dandy man. I look forward to running into you again on ladder, and hopefully you guys enjoyed that Tomb King versus Dinosaur showdown. Have an excellent night, guys, and take care.